Welcome to another week of Soap Secrets. Yep, we're back and we're talking all things hospitals. Not for much longer though, because of course Holby, it will be RIP soon, won't it, Claire? So you're going to warn me, aren't you? Because you know I don't like a lot of blood, and Holby, there's a lot of gore, I think, this week.
Yes, Hannah, hello. So I was quite shocked, and I watched this and I thought, not another close-up shot of blood. So there were a lot. If I thought there was a lot, I think there were a lot of close-up of the operations. So it's certainly not a time to be snacking when you're watching this.
No, I'm not very good at that sort of a bit of claret. I like to drink it. I don't like to watch it.
It was really gruesome.
Apart from the operations, what else is going on?
So last week, I didn't want to give this away, but last week we saw in the final minute of Holby a woman called Maisie spot Ollie in the lift and get upset. And we kind of figured, what's all this about? Ollie's great. It's so great to have him back. And so this week, I think this storyline, or this week's Holby, it's all Ollie. Ollie. Mm-hmm. And It turns out that Ollie had a relationship with this Maisie, and he'd suffered a blackout and attacked her. And she had no idea that he had been shot in the past, and she was, she feels quite strongly about this, and so she's really shocked to see him. She's a bit unhappy. He's a doctor. She talks to Russ, his mentor, and she says if she didn't know any better, she'd think that Ollie was suffering from PTSD. Well, he is suffering from PTSD from the time when he was shot about 4 years ago by Hanson's son Frederick. And this is made worse now because he's back working at the hospital where the incident took place. Now, it was 4 years ago, so Frederick actually... He came storming into the hospital with a gun. The hospital went into lockdown. Everybody was removed. But poor Ollie was in the middle of an operation, and he had to continue. All of the operating team had to continue doing this operation. You can't just leave a patient on a table, opened up. So under all this pressure, he was still operating, trying to save this person's life. And Frederick knew the code to the door and entered to the operating theatre, and that's when Ollie was shot. So it is quite shocking. So this week he takes a lead in an operation and he has another blackout, and you can see how it happens. He's back in a locked room, and just outside of the operating door there's a man mopping the floor. He's not doing anything bad, he's just mopping the floor, but the end of the mop, the stick looks a bit gun-like, so Ollie can just see this stick by the door, and he keeps thinking it's a gun, and this puts him into another blackout, and he thinks he's back in the operating room again, about to get shot by Frederick, and the patient nearly dies, Hannah. Patient nearly dies.
Oh God, do you know what? It's really haunting for him, isn't it? It's absolutely horrible, and he's being put into a position that it just, is not good for anybody, particularly the patient.
Yes, and and he's got a scalpel in his hand. Hanson gets cut. Will Ollie get the help he needs, and will Hanson keep him working at the hospital? Because Russ had kept his last blackout from Hanson, and really, it is a bit shocking that you've got a doctor who is subject to blackouts operating. So
I mean, it sort of goes hand in hand, doesn't it? Getting the help and staying at the hospital, but I'm not sure that they can work alongside each other. And if you're putting a patient's life at risk, I know this is a hospital drama, but in the real world, back in the real world, and then there's also another very near death, isn't there?
Yes, this one's quite an interesting storyline. So we have a young black woman brought in, and we see her. She's brought into ED. They put her up onto Darwin, and we see her writhing in pain on a bed with her partner standing next to her. They don't know what's wrong with her. Max and Dom diagnose her. Now Dom does something that is quite shocking. He makes an assumption about her, and he decides and diagnoses that she's having a sickle cell crisis. Now to compound this, the young lady in question, the young woman in question, she's not registered with a doctor, so they can't get any of her NHS notes. So he is working kind of blind. So she she hasn't registered with a doctor. She's actually from Zimbabwe, but she's having a relationship with another woman over here, and they're trying to make a go of it. So she's come into Britain, but hasn't yet registered with her GP. And Max argues he should have done X, Y, and Z. He shouldn't really be making assumptions about sickle cell. About this young lady having a sickle cell crisis. But actually, is she having a sickle cell crisis, Hannah? And it turns out she's not.
Oh, so he's kind of everything's affecting his diagnosis, his sort of preconceived thoughts.
Yes, he has. He's let his unconscious bias affect his diagnosis because this woman is black. He made an assumption she was in a sickle cell crisis. There were a couple of other medical bits that made him think that, but actually it's her gallbladder that's horribly infected and needs removing.
Okay. Oh God, it's all going on. It's gory, isn't it, this week? I'm not sure if I can stomach it. I'll have to do it before dinner rather than after. Please tell me that in Casualty, it's not quite so gory.
It's not quite so gory, but it is another high octane episode. Casualty are just cooking on gas at the moment, aren't they, Hannah?
They really are. They really are. It's great.
Yeah, because Jan and Fiona held hostage.
Yeah, it's never really a quiet week for poor old Jan, is it?
No, she's had a lot going on this last year. So she attends what is thought to be a hit and run at a gated community when a security guard is hit by a car. And when the police roll up, because obviously it's a hit and run, it turns out that the attending officer is Fionn, and we know that Fionn is her estranged wife. Now, Fionn tells her that she is going to see a divorce lawyer, and she suggests that Jan does too. And this is quite shocking because they are actually both at work. So this brings all of Jan's emotions up because Fionn left her because she was attacked when Jan was supplying drugs to her son Ross in prison, and Fionn was lied to, and she feels really, really distressed by this. So Fionn goes looking for clues, but of course the man who did the hit and run is still hanging around in this gated community, and a shot is fired. And Jan goes to investigate and finds Fionn in the squash court with disgruntled employee Dave holding his former CEO Tony Gerard hostage along with Fionn. So he's got a gun. He is he's live streaming the hostage situation, and he wants Tony Gerard to make a confession about knowing that diesel cars cause climate change, caused pollution.
Very, very, very on topic, I think you'll find.
Will the pair make it out alive?
Well, that is the question. That is the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's pretty hairy in there, I'd imagine.
Yes, very hairy, yes.
And while all that's going on, as per most of these soaps, there's another thread running through. Because last week we left Ethan, or we left 2 weeks ago, wasn't it, actually? We left him fighting for his life after being stabbed in the stomach. What's the update on that?
So we left him upstairs on the roof, being stabbed by the patient, the mentally ill patient, and Stevie stood there, quite frankly, a couple of minutes too long, really. If you're a doctor and your colleague is stabbed, you go running straight in, don't you?
You would have thought so.
She did stand there, I thought, a couple of minutes too long. Anyway, Dylan came up and sorted the situation. He's had successful surgery and he's now due to wake up, Hannah. But when he wakes up, what will he tell Dylan? Will he tell Dylan exactly what went on the rooftop? And will Stevie lose her job? Stevie is convinced she's going to lose her job. She goes around looking really morose and very, very upset. But while she's not the most likeable doctor, she is very competent. And I think the ED would be a poorer place if they were to lose her.
I think in these hospital dramas, if there's a good doctor, we need to hang on to them, no matter the narrative surrounding them. Just saying. Well, another great week in the hospitals. If you haven't got a stomach for blood like me, then maybe navigate your way around Holby, or have the remote control in your hand to fast forward those parts. But thanks, Claire. We will be back again next week.